Hello, Trev. This is Corey. Go by Jolly Ranch on YouTube. I'm a recent subscriber to your channel, and although I've watched many hours of your videos already, first thing I'd just like to say is really thank you for the high quality videos with the great content that you provide for people like me to learn. Never done body work before, sheet metal work. Not to any great extent anyway, never correctly as I'm learning. But I have a project that I'm working on that I could really use your help with, some insight and tips on how I could handle certain problems on this project. This is a project that I've been working on for many years, but of course it always falls to the bottom of the priority list due to other priorities, such as keeping my car running so that I can get back and forth and work, and problems with other vehicles and machinery and equipment. So I have to apologize. As you look around this vehicle, it's in a little rough shape just from sitting in half-finished state or partially finished state. So I'll turn this camera around and show you some details. This is kind of a video request, you might say, for assistance on this project. Thanks, Trev. This is a 1972 Brute 4 wagon, as it went by here, more commonly known as a Jimny. It was made by Suzuki starting in the 70s, I believe, early 70s. This one is an LJ20 model. Originally came with a 2-cycle water-cooled gasoline engine. 2 cylinders in line. I think it had a total of 32 horsepower at 5,500 RPM. And these were imported in the United States by a company, an importer, rather than by Suzuki. They weren't sold outright by Suzuki. And there was a model that predecessor to this called the LJ10, and that had a 2-cycle air-cooled engine, I believe. And then there were later models, I think the LJ50, LJ55, and LJ80 were the up to horsepower larger engines, but they always remained two-stroke engines. And these, I believe these models were also imported into Europe, in the UK. I know I believe there's quite a few in the Scandinavia region. Not so certain about the UK, but I believe I've seen a few people with these in the UK online. And this is what it looks like originally. The one that I purchased was in pretty rough shape. And what I'm doing is somewhat of what the term in the United States now is called a resto mod. So I'm trying to restore it, but also modifying it at the same time. And this is my LJ20. It's in pretty rough shape, but what I've done so far is I've transplanted a VW 1.6 liter turbo diesel into this using a kit by a company called Advanced Adapters, or Acme Adapters, I should say. I'll give them a little plug. This is a real common swap in Suzuki Samurais in the United States, and I believe around the world, is to put these little turbo diesels in, and Acme Adapters makes the adapters so that you can get these engines hooked up to a standard Suzuki Samurai transmission, and they have options for even the, I believe the Toyota Hilux to do the same. This LJ20, as you can see, is in rough shape. It's got some rust, body rust, dents, stings. Was painted over from the original yellow color to this wonderful green. It's got a lot of work that needs to be done. I've been doing modifications to it. I put Samurai axles, which wind it out, and I've got these very aggressive, actually skid steer tires mounted on it. I'm actually going to do this truck in a military theme, even though these were never military vehicles. I just like the body style. It reminds me of some military vehicles of the past, so my plan is to make it into a military-looking vehicle, military-themed vehicle. As you can see, I've got a side stack on there. I plan to do a external side mounted air filter coming out the side panel there. I'm trying my best to fabricate some new fenders for it because the original fenders were rusted beyond repair. My question to you, Trev, and you can see I've mocked up some tube doors for this because the original doors were rusted beyond repair. Tapping into your wealth of knowledge and experience, I have a few problems on this truck that I could really use your assistance with in trying to best address how to fix them. Of course, there's one serious problem where we have a seamed step seam here with some rust through here, so that's going to have a patch panel put into this area. But I think I can actually handle that after watching many of your videos and other videos. Some of my favorite channels on YouTube have inspired me to attempt these projects for the first time. This vehicle is going to be my guinea pig for learning to do body work. This back swing out door is pretty well intact, but as you can see, it's got a lot of surface rust and quite a few dings and dents that I could really use some assistance in trying to address some of those problems. Sorry, I have to step back and get something for reference here. I have to apologize for the lighting, it's not the greatest here. You can see there's some rust along some other seam areas here. It's going to have to be cleaned out and evaluated. I haven't seen how bad the rust is in some of these areas, but there's obviously some rust through. So some patch panels in this area. I believe this area is primarily surface rust and should be able to be cleaned up. Another area is this truck obviously took a tip over at some point, and although they pushed out the damage, the light that I'm using right now here illustrates some of the problems here. You know, we've got some definite push-ins and some amateur attempts to push this back out with some tools other than dollies, it appears, due to the texture we have there. So I believe that I should be able to work out from the backside. I believe there's enough access in that area. Swing this around and bring some light in. But I believe that we should be able to get at that area to push those out, and then perhaps use a shrinking wheel to bring that all back level again. So that's not an area I'm terribly concerned with. Actually, the area I'm most concerned with is, besides some of the major rust panels, we're going to have some major panel work done here, of course, in the bottom, and on the other side it's been covered over with some diamond tread aluminum. But this area here, I know it's going to be hard for you to see because this is a two-dimensional camera. But just to give you an idea of something that's going on here, you can see there's some major push-ins right along the edges of these raised ribs. Right in this area here. There's a push-in here, which has created a bow out here. There's actually a push-in here, a push-in here, and another push-in right along the raised rib in this area. There's a major dip through here, although I think the impact actually happened flat on the raised rib and pushed the whole panel in. And then there's another area here which might be associated with this. These two might be associated with the same time. The damage might have occurred at the same time. And then of course there's rust along the edge, and I'll show you some other. But my concern here is, as you can see in the top, this raised rib is relatively flat all the way across the whole panel. So that is relatively damage free. And then from that point we go to a raised area pretty much right in the center. You can see as I rock this back and forth. And that's right next to the area that was pushed in here. But that raised area actually gets worse than some of the ribs below it, as you can see. And it continues on that way all the way down the center of this panel. Now, my plan, after watching lots of videos, and your videos in particular, was to try to place a dolly behind this area here, push out while I hammered down the raised area here to try to bring this rib back out. That was my plan. However, there's a complication. Let me show you that. There's a support rib running down right through the center of the door. And that area that I was just pointing at to on the door is probably roughly right in this area. So it's not possible for me to get a heel dolly in there, which would actually probably work pretty well if I could. So the only thing that I can think of to do there would be to make a dolly of my own that would fit in this profile of the raised rib, with some type of extended handle that could come out that I could put leverage on it while I hammered that. And but I could really use your input on this area here, because almost the exact same thing will have to be done in this area here. So, and then this area over here doesn't appear to be a sharp dent anywhere, but this whole area, as you can see, I'm in the United States, so I'm sorry to say I work in inches, but I would say that it's probably close to a ½ inch or more pushed in at that point compared to the rest of the panel. So that's a fairly deep push there, and although I think I should be able to get in that area to work back in here, I won't have a lot of room to work, but I think I should be able to get back there. And then this crease in this area didn't damage the raised rib, but it pushed it in severely right here, and unfortunately that's going to be a rather difficult area unless I can remove this panel, the whole latch, and then I might be able to gain access to the backside. And then I'll show you some of the other damage that I'm going to have to address, is the rust along the bottom of the door, and these extensions on the body panels on the backside. They're double thickness here, but the inside is definitely gone. The outside might be worth saving, but it's the same along both sides here along the bottom. I'm going to have to fabricate patch panels for those, which will be a challenge for a newcomer to the body working realm. But those are some areas I could really use your help on, and if you have any suggestions at all for addressing some of this rust along these overlapping body seams here, where it doesn't look like the rust is terribly bad. If I could possibly sandblast or chemically remove the rust, I'm wondering if I might be able to salvage this with some type of filler and seam sealers, rather than having to try to cut patch panels in there. I think the metal is still fairly sound, but I'll know more when I start cleaning this up. I just basically cleaned this up just for evaluation purposes just recently, so I'm just getting my first close look at this through the 2 layers of paint and the surface rust that had formed on the damage areas. And then of course this area here, if you have any tips or tricks you could lend for trying to deal with the, I believe a shrinking wheel might help. Once I bring these low areas out, a shrinking wheel might help get rid of these. It looks like they might have used the very end of a chisel, or not a chisel, but a punch to push this area out. I'm hoping that maybe a shrinking wheel might smooth those out. And then there's a slight crease across here, of course, so that'll have to be taken care of. If you have any suggestions, I would appreciate it. Anything else you might see as I walk around here. One thing I have done, there are some repair panels for these available, but they're extremely expensive. There are replacement panels for the rockers, and there's replacement, they call them torpedo panels here, but they're somewhere around $500 a piece for these panels. I think a couple $100 for the rocker panels. So they're very expensive, and if I can avoid and make my own panels, I will do that, although I probably have to do some type of hammer forming, because there was actually, this rocker panel was already replaced once before, and one of these raised ribs used to run along this area is missing, and you can see where they put this
diamond plate aluminum panel in here. They actually cut through one of the small raised embossings on this panel. So if I try to replace this panel with tin rather than aluminum, I'm going to have to try to replicate that little bump there. I don't know if you can see it very well, probably not, unfortunately, but it's right here. It's just a smaller version of one of these. And of course there's a lot of surface rust, but I think a lot of this isn't going to be too much of an issue. This area here is going to be an issue, of course, where I already pretty much believe that I'm going to have to cut this area out top and bottom, put a flanged panel in the bottom, and then put a panel over here and maybe have her form it over a mold or a form in order to get the edge. From watching your videos, I think that might be something I'll be able to do. So thank you again, Trevor. I believe I'm not the only one out there that really enjoys watching your videos. I've learned a great deal and been inspired to try to do some of our own work, where I probably would have just tried to find somebody to do this work for me, but I think I'm going to attempt to do it myself with your help. So thank you very much, Trevor, and I hope you can find the time to watch this and reply. Thank you.